So you like Baldur's Gate 3 and you want more, but the prospect of navigating through scores of massive 100+ hour CRPGs horrifies you? Do you wish you had a guide through this landscape of epic games? Someone who, say, has spent thousands of hours living virtual adventures while ignoring real-life social situations and responsibilities? Well, fear not. I've spent my life immersing myself in virtual stories instead of making friends or having actual experiences, so I'm the perfect man for the job. I'm here to categorize some of the best the genre has to offer, so whether you're a CRPG newcomer or veteran, you can smoothly embark on your journey into some of the best games ever made. But first, can I briefly talk about Baldur's Gate 3? When Baldur's Gate 3 released a few months ago, it exploded out of the gates and defined itself not only as one of the greatest games of the year, but one of the best CRPGs of all time. Traditionally, CRPGs, or computer role-playing games, were more of a niche category of games that had a high difficulty curve, but if you can crest that difficulty curve, it would allow a player to enjoy an immensely satisfying experience. To see a 100+ hour fantasy CRPG meet critical acclaim and commercial success is something amazing, and I hope it opens the genre to many who have never given it a chance. In order to help you get into CRPGs, I have decided to break some of my favorites in this genre down into 4 categories. First, you got Baby's First CRPG. Oh, look how adorable they are. They're graphically gorgeous and feature approachable gameplay. They're so cute. Then you have your beginner CRPGs, which will hold your hand pretty well, but offer some challenges. After that, we got the first day of high school and you don't have any friends, intermediate level RPGs. Oh my god, the hallways are so crowded. You don't know where the H wing of the school is. Oh geez. And finally, we have the pound you in the ass super expert CRPGs, which are incredibly rewarding, but very, very difficult to master. So without further ado, let's get started. Dragon Age Origins. Dragon Age Origins walked so Baldur's Gate 3 could run. As someone who has beaten this phenomenal title 3 separate times, I can say that while playing Baldur's Gate 3, I have had many moments of deja vu. You got a big world-ending threat, a wide array of abilities and classes to choose from, and a bunch of horny people in your camp who all want to have sex with you. Ah, geez, Gale, we just met. I don't want to explore the weave with you right now. Come on, man. Dragon Age Origins is basically a blueprint for how to build a successful CRPG. When you start the game, you are given the choice of 6 different backgrounds to choose from, and your choice will have implications across the entire 60-hour game. You play as a Grey Warden, a race of superhuman beings who are tasked with stopping an evil dragon and its darkspawn armies. You have to go around the world making decisions, finding allies, and best of all, you get a dog that you can name. And if you don't name him Barkspawn, you're playing the game wrong. For a game that came out in 2009, the visuals still hold up surprisingly well, and as an added bonus, you can get the game and all of its phenomenal DLC for pretty cheap on Steam. It even has a cool DLC where you get to play as the evil forces at the end of the game and systematically kill the hero and his or her party before ruling the world. I always thought that was a cool what-if scenario that I wish more games would have. But yeah, if you're new to CRPGs, going from Baldur's Gate 3 to Dragon Age Origins will be a natural next step. Just do yourself a favor and skip the sequels to Dragon Age Origins, which both devolve into boring MMO-style fetch quests with a cast of characters who slowly get stupider and stupider with each title until half your companions in Dragon Age 3 are mentally challenged losers who have no motivations.
Choking fear. Can't think from the medicine, but the cuts rack me with every heartbeat.
Whoa, careful, don't cut yourself on that edge there, Cole. Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. While these games may be difficult for someone who has never played a CRPG before, if you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you can easily go into them considering they are also made by Larian. In fact, Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 have more rudimentary combat and more simplistic narrative choices than Baldur's Gate, so going into these titles will offer easier experiences. They both follow your typical role-playing fanfare with evil ancient dragons, shifting alliances from mysterious foes, and quality combat, but they do add a few cool things into the mix. In Divinity 1, you're actually making and controlling 2 characters instead of 1, and their relationship and actions shape the story in interesting ways. In the second one, there's this really cool combat system where different elements can combine to form interesting and devastating results, so combat is always kept interesting. While these both are simpler when compared to Baldurs Gate 3, they offer a great path forward into the world of CRPGs and keep to a formula that will make novice players comfortable while giving veteran players a fun experience.
Oh no! One of the lizards has set our mage on fire with a reckoning fireball. Quickly, she makes it rain, and the fire is doused.
Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Okay, this one isn't exactly a CRPG, but I had to put it on here because this trilogy is just so amazing. One of the most important things in a quality CRPG are the companions. Having a diverse group of interesting and cool people to tackle the challenges the game throws at you makes the entire experience way more engaging, and for my money, companions don't get much better than Mass Effect's roster. Across the 3 titles, you have access to over 20 squad members, all of which have unique backstories and histories. You got a lizard assassin, a sexy blue lady who's part of a race of sexy blue space lesbians, an angry turtle, and so many cool characters it's impossible to have a favorite. Except I'm lying, because the best is obviously Garrus Vakarian, who's basically Space Batman. Well, at least it's impossible to have a least favorite. Except I'm lying again, because there's Ashley Williams, the space racist who thinks aliens are stupid. Hey Shepard, see all these cool aliens that are awesome? Well, I hate them. Want to read the Bible and talk about my sisters? Uh-oh, looks like we need someone to go on a suicide mission and never come back. I wonder who would be perfect for the job. For real though, this game is the most engaging and dynamic space opera of the medium, and despite a lackluster ending in the third one, the whole thing is wildly engaging for well over 100 hours. While the combat is pretty simple, especially in the first game, it is more than made up for by some of the best character writing and plot of any RPG out there. Again, this isn't really a CRPG, but if you like Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age, you need this on your list.
You told Admiral Hackett to abandon the Destiny Ascension.
I've had enough of your disingenuous assertions.
Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Everybody wants to be a Jedi Knight. They got a cool laser sword, they get to be heroes and fight robots and evil people, and they're forced to be celibate. What's not to love? The problem is, if you pop a CD-ROM into your original Xbox and you are immediately given a lightsaber, it doesn't really feel that special. You start off with the coolest weapon in all of fiction. There's no way to go up from there. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic lets you be a Jedi, but you have to earn that shit. You start the game as some basic bitch nobody who has to fight with a lame vibroblade. You're weak enough to get bodied by a couple of bad guys, and for a lot of the adventure, you're running errands for inconsequential NPCs. For a good 20 or 30 hours, you're a weak loser. You have to go through all this shit like being stuck in a stupid diving bell suit, moving slower than a slug, and I hate this part of the game, holy shit, it's so boring! But if you keep at it, you start doing crazy stuff and you get a lightsaber and you begin to influence the very fate of the galaxy. Star Wars writing, especially in the Disney era, is hilariously bad, but Knights of the Old Republic features quite literally some of the best twists I have ever seen across any medium. Seriously, if you haven't played this game, don't look up the plot. If you go into it blind, there's one twist that will absolutely floor you. While the game is a little bit clunky, and we were promised a remaster that looks like it might be cancelled, this is definitely worth a playthrough.
It is not possible to destroy the Master. It is suggested you run while my blasters warm up, meatbags.
Tyranny. What do you expect from a role-playing game? You play as a farm boy turned hero who gallivants about a kingdom, gets together a ragtag team of teenage adventurers, and kills a great evil or a god. That's standard fare for most RPGs, right? Well, in Tyranny, you play in the aftermath of a scenario where evil has conquered the world, and you act as a judge who has to carry out the will of the evil overlord. Oh, what's that? You want to do the right thing? Fuck you! Put down this rebellion and kill everybody who dares to rise up against the overlord. While you have a degree of freedom in how you pass your judgments, and you can show mercy at times, ultimately you are the oppressor in this game. Regardless of what you do, you are the bad guy. Because this game flips the script on the typical good versus evil quest, it leads to some truly unique situations where you have to be creative if you want to make morally good decisions. If you want to be a vindictive asshole, you can do that, but if you want to be noble, you have to work within the confines of a foul leader and his demands. On my playthrough, I actually decided to rebel against the big bad guy, but unlike many traditional CRPGs with this plot, I faced a lot of very realistic opposition. Most RPGs make it easy to get a group of people to go on a near-suicide mission against the ultimate evil, but in Tyranny, it wasn't so easy. People couldn't fathom me going up against the evil force, many mocked my ambitions, and no one jumped at the chance to join me. This game doesn't rely on dice rolls to determine social interactions, so if you want to convince someone of something, you have to use logic and charisma to get your way. Like when I was trying to get some of the most important people in the evil regime to switch sides and join me, I encountered this guy who acted as the Grand Judge. He was well versed in the law set forth by the Dark Lord that ruled the world, and acted in his name because he felt the law was just. But if you methodically point out the subtle contradictions and unjust foundation of the bad guy's law, he will agree to help you. Having a long conversation with someone about the equanimity of law may not sound like something you would traditionally ascribe to video games, but if you want a game where you are forced into a shitty situation and have to use your wits to overcome it, this one is for you. And it's only about 20 or 30 hours, so it's not as big a time sink as most CRPGs.
How could we have known that the fate of thousands would rest in your hands?
Pathfinder Kingmaker. Many games take you from a simple peasant to a heroic adventurer, but something this game does well is it really makes you feel like you are amassing the social rewards of becoming a hero. Like you know in Skyrim how if you're the head of every guild, the Archmage, and the true Dragonborn, you may turn a corner and have some bottom bitch try to steal your gold. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would a bandit try to steal from a guy who looks like this? Pathfinder Kingmaker does a great job at making you feel like you're rising up in the world. At the beginning of the game, you're just saving towns and helping illiterate farmhands, but as you start to get stronger and take on greater challenges, you begin to have villages, cities, and whole armies fall under your influence. In Pathfinder Kingmaker, you aren't just traveling around a static world, but as your influence grows, you actually build a kingdom, kind of like a kingmaker. You can appoint companions as advisors who help you sort through well-written dilemmas. You can improve your holdings and upgrade shithole towns into sprawling cities, and as you amass power, you catch the eye of other rulers with shifting alliances who could be friends or foes. The power fantasy aspect of CRPGs is something that has been done many times before, but Pathfinder Kingmaker actually makes it feel like the world is reacting to your increase of status. In Pathfinder Kingmaker, you aren't just improving yourself, but the world itself is reacting to your ascension in a way that I've never seen emanated quite so well.
Into your hands we commend our lives, and humbly request you address the fate that awaits for us under your rule.
Pillars of Eternity. Pillars of Eternity is basically someone looking at Baldurs Gate 1 and 2 and saying, what if we made this, but made it not terribly confusing to play in modern times? In my opinion, this is the closest modern game to classic Baldur's Gate adventures. The isometric graphics are very similar, the story deals with elements of souls and godhood in a similar way to Baldur's Gate, and in both games there's a weird, goofy-ass holy man that shouts awesome one-liners.
Go for the eyes, boo! Go for the eyes! Rusk! A purification is coming, and this fire shall consume them both.
This game's made by Obsidian, the guys behind Fallout New Vegas, Tyranny, and The Outer Worlds, which is basically just Fallout in space. But anyway, with every game they make, your choices have legitimate consequences. Pillars of Eternity presents you with some amazingly well-made moral quandaries that have massive repercussions on the world. There are many points in this game where you can make a decision that will fundamentally alter the fate of the entire world and everyone in it. Pair that with a well-made battle system and solid companions, and you're in for a good time. Maybe after you played Baldur's Gate 3, you thought about playing the first two Baldur's Gate games. I mean, it's the same series, how different could they be? Well, playing the original Baldur's Gate after playing Baldur's Gate 3 is basically like trying to start a fire with flint and tinder when you're used to turning on your fireplace with a wireless remote. But if you try to play Pillars of Eternity first, that's like making a fire with a match. It's tougher than you're used to, but you're not going to end up freezing and miserable.
Step forth, and be assured of the great worth of your life's course.
Wasteland 3. When Fallout 1 and 2 looked like this, then they made Fallout 3 look like this, some people said, wait a minute, I don't want my Fallout to look like that, I want it to look like this. While Bethesda has left isometric Fallout behind, In Exile Entertainment has made their own isometric Fallout with blackjack and hookers and a giant mechanical statue of Ronald Reagan.
It is irrelevant whether one is communist. Communist? Communist?
If you can't get enough of the Fallout series and have found a newfound desire for CRPGs, this is a perfect intersection for you. Wasteland 1 and 2 are both solid titles, but Wasteland 3 is the most polished of the bunch, and in my opinion has the best story and characters. The whole series is roughly connected, but you can hop into Wasteland 3 without playing the other two. The setting for this game is a post-apocalyptic world that doesn't look like all the other post-apocalyptic worlds out there. Hold on, I can fix that. Let me just slap a sepia filter over it and there we go. Now it looks like a desert with sand and every other fucking post-apocalyptic thing. So you form a party of rangers and meet Logan Roy of Colorado, who wants to go full succession with his 3 heirs.
The Dorseys didn't just attack you. They attacked my city. This one was trying to burn down our jail.
You have to navigate a complex web of relationships and factions to ultimately determine who will come to rule this frozen hellscape, and during your journey you will come across all the quirky fun one can expect from games like Fallout.
I got my good buddy Clarence here to help me. Clarence? Clarence? Oh, no! Oh, Clarence! He was 2 days away from retirement!
Baldurs Gate 1. Boy, Baldur's Gate 3 sure was great. I should try Baldur's Gate 1. Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are fantastic games. In fact, I would wager they have some of the best fantasy stories ever told in gaming, but accessible they are not. The first 2 Baldur's Gate games are based around the 2nd edition of D&D, which was released in 1989, so you'll have to understand an antiquated system over 30 years old to even play this game. Have you ever heard of THAC0 before? Or what about not always using a D20 for hit rolls? What's that? You don't like watching all of your characters miss their attacks for 5 minutes in a row before hitting anything? Oh, also the game doesn't have a quest log that works? What am I supposed to do? Get a pen and paper and write down all this shit? Add to that the fact that many parts of Baldur's Gate are horribly obtuse and you have a very difficult experience for newcomers to the genre. That being said, there are many positive things about this game. Like, the bad guy is named Sarevok, right? And he's a huge asshole. But at one point you meet a guy named Corvirus, and he's a total bro. And he's like, hey man, Sarevok sucks, so tell me how you plan on killing him again? Then you tell him and he's like, you fool, Corvirus is Sarevok backwards. Then you're just sitting there staring at your screen realizing you're a fucking idiot and you just told the bad guy all your secrets and your last quick save was like 25 minutes ago. Are you fucking kidding me? There are plenty of moments like that, and if you can push past the insanely high learning curve, you will enjoy a wonderful story with a level of freedom the likes of which few RPGs, even to this day, have achieved. Just be warned, if Baldur's Gate 3 is your first introduction to the series, this is definitely not your best next step.
Boo's giant shrunken heart thrills to see you again, as does my own.
Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. Star Wars is the most intellectually bankrupt IP in the history of entertainment. Oh, excuse me. While many of the movies and shows are decent, you have the exact same plot played over and over again. Small band of good rebels fights a big evil empire. The good guys are always good, even when they blow up millions of people, and the bad guys are always bad, even when they massacre annoying teddy bears. There's no in between, and the morals have the depth of a puddle. However, in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, Obsidian attempted to add a little more complexity to the system. In this game, you have to navigate through a lot of gray areas, and on your journey, the traditional RPG tropes are turned on their head. Like, you'll come across some kid who is starving, and your choices are to give him some money or food, or to stab him in the face with your lightsaber. It's pretty easy to see what's good and evil there, right? Well, your companion Kriya offers you an alternative perspective. If you give the kid food, she says you're actually hurting the boy by prolonging his suffering, and he will eventually starve anyway. Whereas if you kill him, you would end his suffering. It's an interesting argument that many RPGs wouldn't even bother to make, and this game is chock full of situations where your morals are challenged in interesting ways. Unfortunately, like most Obsidian games, this game is a glitchy mess. In fact, in its vanilla state, the game not only has several game-breaking glitches, but entire areas and endings that were never put into the game. Luckily, a fan-made patch has added a lot of cut content to the game, but just know that there are some challenges in this game due to many rough edges.
I am but a mirror whose only purpose is to show you what your own eyes cannot yet see.
Disco Elesium. Disco Elesium is what would happen if you combined Sherlock Holmes and a barrel full of LSD. The basic plot is simple. You're a washed-up cop who has to investigate the death of a man who was hanged behind your hotel. But what starts off as a simple conundrum evolves into a wild and wacky journey unlike anything else I've ever played. The game doesn't have traditional skills like survival or perception, but instead each of the 24 skills in the game acts as part of the broken psyche of the player. So let's say you've put points into conceptualization. You may be talking to some kid about what happened, and then a voice in your head, the voice of conceptualization, will tell you details about the scene that is unfolding in your mind, and you will be able to ask additional questions based off what you're seeing in your head. It's so cool to basically see in the mind of a neurotic person, and you are literally guided by the voices in your head. The world itself is fantastic as well, with over 6,000 years of history built into it, a variety of factions representing various social constructs, and a plot that unfolds in directions you will never see coming. There's a lot to love in Disco Elysium, but the key part of that sentence is a lot. Juggling socioeconomic concepts, neurosis, and characters with devious motivations is not an adventure for the faint of heart. Going from Baldurs Gate 3 to this would be like going from a coloring book to War and Peace. This is a text-heavy game that will challenge your brain in unique ways, but if you're in the mood for something nuanced, unique, and strange, this is the game for you. Be warned though, it's not an easy game. True story, on my first playthrough, I awoke hungover and reached up to grab my tie that was on a ceiling fan. I failed a physical check, had a heart attack, and died. Game over in 5 seconds. It's weird and obscure, but I can't think of any other game that allows you to die from a heart attack in the first 5 seconds.
Kuno knows to respect that violent shit. You should see Kuno's dad. Kuno's dad doesn't give a shit about anything.
Baldurs Gate 2. Baldurs Gate 2 expands on everything from Baldurs Gate 1. There are more quests, more companions, bigger maps, more glitches, more confusion. This is one of the best games ever made, but no part of this game holds your hand. You're put into a massive open world with huge challenges, multiple factions, and weight to your every decision. The game takes place right after the first one as well, so playing through Baldur's Gate 1 is a must. That being said, there's a reason why this game was the gold standard for CRPGs for decades. This game is not easy, it's not forgiving, and if you don't quick save every 5 seconds, you're bound to do one little thing that will fuck up your entire playthrough. But on the other end of the struggle is an experience the likes of which will be eclipsed by very few games.
Butts will be liberally kicked in good measure!
Planescape Torment. Talk about a game title being accurate. If Disco Elysium is like War and Peace, Planescape Torment is basically a textbook on calculus in Chinese. By modern standards, it's borderline unplayable. It presents a world with no basis in reality, the game features next to no combat, and the conversations you have with people are so detailed and expansive, it makes this feel less like playing a game and more like reading a novel. And yet, it is brilliant beyond comparison. Decades before Dark Souls was bold enough to keep the plot and world a mystery to players, Planescape Torment was hiding everything you wanted to know about its world behind a thick veil of intrigue and mystery. When you play the game, you wake up in a mortuary. You don't know who you are, what you have to do, or why you should do anything. But as you explore, you piece together fragments of a massive narrative that is unrivaled by any game before or since. This is not like your traditionally fun games. One of my fondest memories of this game is wandering into a bar, which happened to feature a man permanently on fire in the center of it, but don't worry about that, and talking to a guy about the nature of life and death. He was considering ending his life, and you, as the player, could explore why he wanted to do this and what his reasoning was. The entire sequence was a 20-minute conversation where you are using your reasoning and logic to try to understand what this person wants to do and why they want to do it. I think Diane Carr of Game Studies said it best in 2003 when she described the game as such. Planescape Torment aims to provide its players with a sense that they are excavating a history, the Avatar's forgotten past, while exploring more or less at will a vast and bizarre invention. It's a bizarre trek through an avant-garde fantasy world that is insanely difficult to grasp for gamers who did not grow up on CRPGs, but if given the time and patience, this game is one of the most rewarding jaunts through a uniquely beautiful world that all of gaming has to offer.
What can change the nature of a man?
A game without a good story is really just a simple exercise in passing the time. Stories in games make us laugh, they make us cry, and they make us want to keep playing long into the night. While there are plenty of quality games out there, I feel like CRPGs have consistently featured some of the most complex and deeply rewarding adventures there are, but they have hidden them behind difficult mechanics and antiquated systems. Luckily, with the success of Baldurs Gate 3, I'm hoping that for many gamers, this will open a door into some of these fantastic experiences. Sitting in front of a computer screen in your underwear at 4 in the morning when you have to start work at 6 doesn't seem like an adventure, but the magic of CRPGs has always laid in their ability to transport the gamer to a completely different world. They lack the graphics and approachability of many titles, but with a little bit of patience, imagination, and persistence, they can unlock gaming memories that will last a lifetime. So whether Baldurs Gate 3 is your first foray into CRPGs, or you're a veteran of the genre, I recommend checking out some of the games that I've listed, and hopefully by ordering them as easy to hard, it will allow you to navigate this fantastic genre a little bit easier. If there's a game I've excluded, or if you have any questions about these games, or recommendations of your own, go ahead and say so in the comments, and I'll check those out. I should have a new video coming out in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's going to be an animation that I'm finishing up now, so stay tuned for that, and if you like this content, like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Thanks. Bye.